Morning. For my wife and I, our journey at Sunnyside began at a very specific time and location. It was almost exactly 8 years ago, and it was right outside the sanctuary in the cry room out there. We were there partly because we had a brand new baby, our first, who had been born just a few weeks earlier, but we were also just a bit wary. We had just moved to the area, and throughout our 20s, we had attended church, but seemed to always be moving or anticipating a move. The churches we went to were great, but we never became deeply involved. It was also an election season, just like it is now, and there was just as much fear and division and anger everywhere you looked, or at least that's how it seemed to our hyper-vigilant new parent brains. So coming to a new church, we didn't know what to expect. But we kept coming back, and eventually our son Simon was old enough to go to the nursery, and we seated ourselves a little bit reluctantly in the actual sanctuary. And one of the first people we met was Dave Wiseman. Many people sitting here knew Dave and will remember him fondly. Dave Wiseman really was a wise man. He struck me as a person who had seen everything. He had weathered his fair share of arguments and conflicts. He was in his 80s, but actively practicing law at the time. He also had cared for his wife, Edie, who had suffered from serious memory loss for years and years. He had also seen ups and downs in the life of the church, including the time that the ceiling literally collapsed and Sunday morning worship ended with people being rushed to the hospital. So it's inspired by long-term members like Dave that we began giving more of our time, talent, and treasure at Sunnyside than we ever had before. Now, 8 years later, we've been involved in the session, the deacons, the gardening group, adult education, outreach, and now with 3 kids, we're especially involved in things like VBS and Bible journeys. As many know, Edie died in 2019. Dave became ill not long after and died in 2020. I think if I were to point to the specific thing that Dave taught us, it was the joy of being involved. He and others like him showed us that our fullest joy comes not in holding back, but in giving of ourselves. We learned that life is not best lived hanging out on the periphery, but allowing our stories to become deeply intertwined with others, and also, in that way, more fully intertwined in God's story. So as we move into this time of offering, I wanted to leave you with this rhyme that Dave always used when he called for the offering. And I think it sums up his life and message and the call to stewardship quite well. It goes like this: "We give thee but thine own, whatever the gift may be, and all we have is thine alone, a trust, O Lord, from thee."